Hi guys, so I'm going to be breaking down the Nexus video and just really walking you through my thought process, reaction style. Let's get started.
For 9 years, I've lived a double life. By day, I went.
So this opening sequence was initially about 15 seconds long, and it was basically supposed to just take you through my bedroom, showing you my books on my bed, my saxophone, my desk. There was a whole panning shot across my desk. And then when I was editing, I realized, hold up, I need to get my first line out within the first 3 seconds. So I had to do a lot of cutting down and just, taking things out, because people have very short attention span these days, and you really need to be quick with whatever you're doing. So I cut that down to 3 seconds, and then I showed it to one of my senior colleagues, Ini, and she was like, no, cut it more. Pretty much just start right there, and just talk your stuff. That glitch effect was inspired by Arcane. I just watched Arcane season 2. That was around, I think, the last year, November or December. So it really inspired the style of the glitch. And initially it was supposed to be straight up half doctor, half creative. But then when I was editing, I realized it would look more interesting if it just glitches all over the place. And you'll notice there's a particular frame where the whole Dr. Tito guy shows up in his word coat and before he glitches back. So I thought it was important to at least have a frame that showed me in my full what do I call it now? My full word coat and doctor stuff. So yeah, alright.
Little lectures and countless hours of practice training to become a licensed dental surgeon. And by night, I do head first into the creative world.
So when I wrote the script, I knew that I was going to have to shoot me doing dental stuff, because it didn't make any sense to just see it. It needed to be very immersive. So I also knew that there was no way I was going to do that with the actual production crew, because the hospital isn't going to let me bring anybody in. So I had to trust my guys to record some of these things, and it was very hard because these guys don't know how to, they didn't know how to shoot this thing. So I had to really guide them on how to shoot it exactly the way I wanted it shot. And I think to be fair, they did really well. Also, because of that, I had to use a sort of different style and make it sort of flashback just so it makes it feel it's a totally different world, and we need to cover up for the fact that I was in the same production grade as the rest of the video.
Branding businesses, creating strategies, designing motion videos, directing video productions, storming the 3D and VFX world, creating music scores, and building a thriving creative community. All of it.
So we had to do a lot of improvising with the production design, and I had Ibukun and Deji really helped me on that. So if you look closely, you'd see that part where there were leaves falling down and dripping down. And because there was a TV rack there initially, and also we didn't have much time at all. So we had to pretty much just cover up the TV rack with paper, just sellotaping paper on the wall, and then now draping the leaves down. And I don't think you'll notice that. And one funny thing happened when I started editing. I realized the pace at which I read out my lines or performed my lines was a lot different from the pace I had in mind in terms of the actual shots and the progression of the story. So I had to do a lot of surgery on the clips. If you check the timeline, you see a lot of breakage in the audio clips because I had to really space them out. And thankfully, because of the direction of the video, I had lots of clips to sort of work with and really space things out. You'd also notice the change in the music. I really wanted it to be a really immersive experience in terms of the storytelling. And for me to do that, I really felt like I needed to make the score myself as opposed to using soundtracks from artists and all that. And also because it needed to reflect the range of my abilities. So you will see how it started off sort of solemn, sort of calm in a way that is okay, something is happening. And then we switch up to the creative side where the kick starts, moving, and we're okay, yeah, this is what we're here for, the creative stuff. So yeah, you just, and you'll notice up until this point there is a constant, it feels like something is happening, something is unfolding, which is what the score was really meant to evoke. And the next sequence, tells you what happens next.
Unknowingly to one goal, becoming a Nexus creative. I just made a
so now you see how everything, the music builds up, and then you have this orchestral messianic review. If you check the script, you see there was supposed to be a whole messianic thing where, oh, I'm the creative messiah. I mean, I don't mean that literally, but then that was like the whole point of the story, because that was the hero moment, the becoming, if you will, of me being that Nexus being, and that was a reference to Nexus beings in Marvel Cinematic Universe. Also because Nexus means a connection of different points, and naturally my abilities and brain sort of like make sense that way. We also had to make a costume for that shot because I needed to do it like live. I needed to bring it to life that way, and we tried out the costume like on the day of the shoot. So we had the green screen setup, lights, camera, and interestingly, we were supposed to come to the studio with a fan because I felt like the fan would really sell the believability of that shot. And then we got to the studio and boom, we forgot the fan. And there was so much traffic out there that we couldn't even attempt to try and get a fan. So you just said, okay, let's just move along. Well, right when we were about to shoot, I was like, I don't think we should do this, without the fan. So I just started looking for stuff around the studio. I'll bring out stuff and Deji will be like, nah. So eventually we found something that we could use to sort of simulate wind. And throughout the shots, Deji was basically simulating wind with it. So every time it took too long for me to get the performance, Deji would tell me, yo, you need to figure this thing out quickly because our hands were hurting. But yeah, we did that. And surprisingly, the R&D I did first, before really getting deep into the work, was very, very productive, because I initially thought that would be the most difficult part of the whole process, which happened to be the music score. But I pretty much jumped into Cinema 4D, did some modeling, lighting, and all that stuff. Brought into After Effects for compositing, and I just tried out a number of things, and it worked out really, really well. I was very surprised, so I just kept pulling that thread and trying to achieve the best look.
Disciplinary creative. And now that I finally have this, free to take off.
So for that shot, I had to look for my provisional license, print it out, and then it was interesting because I also had to find the exact font on it, so I could VFX it out and then replace it, make it blank, and then put my own text there and sort of just get it to permanent, which is what you get when you finish your 1 year internship. You'd also notice when I said free, there was this whole switching from zero saturation to full saturation. And it was interesting to know that there was a different shot there entirely, in the script. It was a lot less subtle in terms of my liberation, if you will. But Ini told me that, nah, you better switch this out. So I literally had to just check all the shots we had and look for something that could communicate that same message. And I found this random shot of Tolu recording me I think we're trying to figure something out or do something. And then I thought, oh, I think this works perfectly. So I decided to just, because the shot actually didn't look great because it wasn't late, nothing was done on it. So I had to just sort of make it like a sort of dramatic, type of shot where there was this whole chromatic aberration, warp effect and all that. So just make it feel ethereal and very liberation-like. And then here the music switches up to, trap. And it unfolds in bits, just showing you, sort of just building up, bit by bit, instruments adding in layers just to reveal the, second part of the video.
To the max, my problem solving, my storytelling, and my obsession with creating. I want better way to find a worthy challenge than to tell my story first. You want to know who I am?
So, So in this shot, it was pretty much the prelude to the big manifesto, which is me, I'll explain that later. But then I forgot a whole line on set, a whole line on set. And it wasn't particularly important, but then it was, I think for me, it was just crucial to link what had been happening before to the next phase. And I pretty much just had to re-record it, back in my studio. And match the EQ, because what was recorded on set was totally different from what I recorded on my condenser mic. So I had to match the EQ, match the background noise, and do a lot of magic. And a lot of the shots you saw there were random things Tolu just shot, like in between takes. And because of the pacing issue, I ended up having to use them. Like, they came in really handy because it was just supposed to be me talking, and in hindsight, I think it was a lot more immersive in that way, having different things pop up on your screen as opposed to just watching me talk. So they really came in handy, thanks to Tolu.
Find a worthy challenge than to tell my story first. You want to know who I am? I'm the guy you call when you want the impossible done. I'm the guy who doesn't stop until the problem is solved. I'm the guy you trust to lead, and I'm the guy you hire to kill your goals. Visit my portfolio website and see for yourself, or just call me.
So we almost didn't shoot this sequence outside because we didn't have time at all. We planned to get the production crew from mainland to island in Lagos, and they're supposed to get to island by 9 a.m. and they ended up getting to island by 1 p.m. It was crazy because the traffic was ridiculous, so we didn't have much time at all. But around 6 p.m. we saw, I think we may be able to actually finish this inside. So the remaining shots were shots that could be shot without light or daytime. So what we did was we just quickly went outside, shot on the gimbal, and the perfect take, I messed up my line with the perfect take, like where the gimbal movement was perfect, everything was perfect. I messed it up. I ended up having to use another shot where you would see here that I was moving to the left and to the right a lot. It was supposed to be just like a straight up walk. So I had to use that shot, and you'll notice there's a part where I said visit my portfolio website. So I actually looked off screen. I shouldn't have looked off screen. I was supposed to look at the camera. So I looked off screen, and it was really painful because I had a much better shot which I messed up at the end. So what I did was I reviewed my website from left to right, and the way it was, I was looking at that left side first. So it now ends up looking like, I was telling you to look at the website as opposed to just actually looking off screen. So that was what that was, and it worked out. And you notice how the shot sort of transitions seamlessly between inside and outside. So we had to shoot the outside part first, then we shot the rest of the script inside. So we had to pretty much just line up the outside shot and then figure out how I was standing, how I was looking, the way my head was and all that. And I still had to do lots of rearranging in post, just really trying to line it up, using guides and just making that perfect transition. You also notice with the music, there's that big, with the horns. So it was supposed to be like this big manifesto of, this is what I've done, this is who I am, this is what I'm capable of. And initially we didn't have all that, data, like the values, the big impact, the data impact of what I've done. And it was, you need that term that you need to get this in there. And it was interesting because that was originally the plan, but for some reason I couldn't figure out how to put that in there in a way that really progressed naturally, because for me the story was very important. And then if you really zoom in at the end, you notice that I winked with 2 eyes instead of 1. It was very funny because that was another reason why I didn't like the shot, but I just felt like, if people don't notice it, then I'm good. So yeah, the general idea for this video was to make a statement for myself. I just come off 9 years of training, and I needed a new challenge. So being me, I wanted to make that statement in a creative way, in a way that people normally wouldn't. So I came up with that story, and I really feel that the only way to really connect with people and make sure that they do watch the video to the end was to tell a story. And thankfully I didn't have to look too far. And finally, I had an amazing crew. Deji was my co-director. I had Deji, Ibukun working on production design, Tolu deep in the project. I had Tolu's people working on sound, recording, and of course Biodun really came through for me on that as well. We've come to the end of the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.